stretching yourself thin, calling it purpose, that really makes you pause, makes you reflect. Is what I'm doing actually life-giving, or is it slowly draining me?
And the answer, according to this source, it seems pretty clear. Purpose gives life. It doesn't drain it.
Such a concise way to put it.
Yeah.
Come on in, let's talk about it. Come on in, let's talk about it. Make it make sense.
Right? This hustle culture that seems to equate burning the candle at both ends with, I don't know, love or dedication. The source really challenges that. It says, love without boundaries is self-destruction dressed in loyalty. Whoa, that's a powerful way to put it.
It is. It forces you to kind of look at your own life and ask, is this relentless activity truly serving others? Or is it maybe masking a deeper need, a need to feel valued, perhaps?
Right, or covering up insecurity.
Could be. And the follow-up line, you stretching yourself thin, calling it purpose, that really makes you pause, makes you reflect. Is what I'm doing actually life-giving, or is it slowly draining me?
And the answer, according to this source, it seems pretty clear. Purpose gives life. It doesn't drain it.
Such a concise way to put it.
Yeah, it's such an impactful way to differentiate between, a true calling and maybe just overcommitment or maybe fear.
Exactly. And then it takes it even a step further. It declares that rest is holy, rest is sacred, rest is a commandment, not a suggestion.
Free.
If you are enjoying our content, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support is appreciated.
Framing it like that as a commandment.
Right,
Wow,
right.
that elevates it beyond just like a self-care tip.
It really does. It implies it's a fundamental principle, almost like a law of well-being baked into our design. Think about it. If we see rest not as a luxury, but as essential, totally required for how we function, it shifts our entire perspective.
It really does. It makes you think about all those times you felt guilty for resting, for taking a break.
We've all been there.
But the source tackles that head on. It even brings in the example of the creator resting after creating the universe. If that's the model, what are we pushing against by refusing to pause?
Exactly. What makes us think we don't need it if, the ultimate example shows it?
Right.
The text then kind of delves into this idea of trust. We say we trust a higher power, but then we act as if everything will completely fall apart the moment we step away.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Yeah, me too. But the source offers this really grounding thought. If it crumbles when you rest, it wasn't built with God in the first place. Oof. That's tough, but ultimately kind of liberating, isn't it?
It is. It makes you examine the foundations of your life, your work. Are they truly resilient? Or are they just precariously balanced on the edge of constant effort?
And this whole idea that progress only happens when we're actively doing things, that gets flipped on its head. The source says some of your deepest growth going to happen in the stillness. Some of your strongest healing going to come in that silence.
That's counterintuitive to how we normally operate.
Totally. But what's fascinating here is the recognition that our inner world, it needs space. Space to process, to heal, to grow. Constant activity can actually prevent that deeper work from happening.
It's like trying to listen to a quiet whisper in the middle of a really noisy room. You just can't hear it.
Exactly. You miss it.
And it's so important that the source explicitly reframes what rest actually is. It's not laziness, it's not weakness, but wisdom and obedience. I love that.
Me too.
It takes away all that negative baggage we often pile on to slowing down.
Precisely. Calling rest wisdom suggests, an understanding of our own limits and needs. And obedience implies a recognition of a natural order, a way we're meant to be. The phrase, "You are not weak," for saying, "I just need a minute," that's just so validating.
Yeah,
Especially for those of us who feel that pressure to always be strong, always be available.
absolutely. And it clarifies that rest isn't like giving up. It's remembering who you belong to and stepping away so God can actually step in.
Yeah, it's about acknowledging we don't have to carry the weight of the world all by ourselves.
It's creating space, maybe.
Exactly. What's powerful here is this idea of creating space for something larger than ourselves to operate. It's about surrendering control, trusting that things can still move forward, maybe even more effectively, when we're not trying to micromanage everything.
Okay, I like that.
The text puts it beautifully. Sometimes your only job is to let go and let peace find you. Let healing chase you down without running from it.
Wow. Let healing chase you. That's a different way to think about it.
Isn't it? Stop running away from the very thing you need.
Which leads directly to this idea of rest as a pathway to clarity. The source points out that we might be seeking answers, praying for direction, but we're too loud to hear them.
Mhm.
You're too busy to feel them. You're too tired to hold them. It's like our internal noise is just drowning out the very guidance we're looking for.
It really highlights how exhaustion and constant stimulation can dull our senses, both literally and figuratively. Rest provides that quiet space needed for those subtle insights, those intuitive nudges, to actually become clear.
Makes sense. And it's in this state of rest, the source says, that we can kind of shed the need to perform.
Yeah.
It says rest is where the mask falls off and you don't got to perform. Rest is where he reminds you that you were enough before you ever did anything.
Oh, that's profound. It cuts through all the external validation we often chase, doesn't it?
Totally.
Rest allows us to reconnect with our core identity, that part of us that is inherently valuable, regardless of what we accomplish. And the reassurance that, you could be gifted and tired, you could be chosen and still need a nap. That's so wonderfully humanizing.
Right. It completely normalizes needing rest, no matter how capable or driven you think you are, or others think you are.
Exactly. It's not a failing.
And then the source introduces this really intriguing concept, rest as a weapon. What does that mean in this context? Seems intense.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The text suggests that rest can actually be a powerful tool, a tool to break cycles, to silence demons, and heal generational wounds.
Wow, okay. So it connects our personal need for rest to these bigger patterns.
Exactly. Patterns of exhaustion, stress, maybe trauma that might have been passed down. By calling it a weapon, it seems to imply it's a proactive force, something we wield against these negative inheritances.
The idea that we come from people who didn't get to rest, that really resonates. When you think about previous generations, the often relentless demands they faced,
Survival mode, often.
it makes sense that we might carry some of that ingrained drive, that inability to stop, even when it's no longer serving us, maybe even harming us.
Precisely. And the source argues powerfully. You can't build a new legacy in the same exhaustion that broke the last one.
Okay, that hits hard.
It reframes rest not just as personal rejuvenation, feeling better today, but as a necessary step in creating a healthier future, disrupting those harmful patterns for ourselves and for those who come after us.
So in that sense, rest becomes almost a revolutionary act.
You can definitely see it that way. And on a practical level, the source emphasizes how crucial rest is for clear thinking, for receiving guidance. It even references 1 Kings 19.12, the gentle whisper, saying, you need rest to hear God clearly because chaos is loud.
It's about creating that internal quiet, that space to actually hear what we need to hear, whether it's divine guidance or our own intuition.
Exactly. When our minds are constantly racing, filled with noise and distraction, it's basically impossible to discern those quieter, more important voices.
The source also touches on how our constant striving, our busyness, can actually block us from receiving good things. It says, you so used to running, you forgot how to receive. You so used to defending yourself, you don't know how to be covered. It's like we're so busy pushing forward that we're not open to being supported or helped.
That's a really powerful insight. When we're always in that state of fight or flight, constantly trying to prove ourselves or protect ourselves, we can totally miss opportunities for grace, for support, for connection.
So rest is an act of vulnerability then.
In a way, yes. It's vulnerability that allows us to be open to receiving.
And that vulnerability ties right back into trust, doesn't it? The text says, rest says I don't got to prove nothing. Rest says I'm safer here. Rest says God's got this.
Yeah, that's such a comforting and reassuring perspective on what rest signifies.
It really is.
Rest becomes this affirmation of our faith, maybe. A recognition that we are not in control of everything and that there is a larger force, a bigger plan at play.
And the text also offers this really hopeful idea that sometimes it's actually God starting something in you, starting healing, starting clarity, starting preparation during those times of stillness.
So those moments that might feel like inactivity, like you're falling behind, they could actually be periods of profound inner transformation, getting you ready for what's next.
That's a really encouraging way to look at it, especially when the pressure is on to always be moving forward.
Right. And then the source gets into this classic but always relevant concept of not being able to pour from an empty vessel.
Yes, the empty cup analogy.
Exactly. The metaphor is just so apt. You can't pour from an empty soul. You're trying to serve God with a tired heart. It just underscores the unsustainable nature of trying to give and contribute when we are completely depleted.
Eventually, you have nothing left to offer. Or what you offer isn't your best.
Or it comes from a place of resentment even. And it makes this really important distinction, too, between genuine inspiration and, well, fear-driven activity.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
The source suggests that constant urge to produce, to perform, to show up like a machine, that's not the Holy Spirit, that's fear. It's about checking our motivations. Why are we doing what we're doing?
So asking ourselves, am I acting out of a genuine sense of purpose, a calling, or am I just driven by a fear of inadequacy, maybe fear of missing out, fear of stopping?
Exactly, those kinds of questions. And the reassurance that resting won't delay your purpose. It'll actually protect it.
Yeah.
That is crucial for anyone, probably most of us, who worries that slowing down will derail their goals or their mission.
Yeah, that fear is real.
Yeah.
And on a really practical level, the source just gives us permission, almost like a mandate, really, to disconnect without guilt, without needing to justify it. You don't got to explain your rest. You don't got to post about it. You don't need anyone's permission to disconnect. That feels incredibly liberating in our hyper-connected world.
It really emphasizes the personal, maybe even private nature of rest. It's not a performance for others. It's a fundamental need we are entitled to meet. No explanation needed.
Right.
And framing it as an investment, you're not just resting for today. You're resting for tomorrow, for what's next, for the battles ahead, for the legacy that you're building that really shifts the perspective from indulgence to strategy.
Strategy for the long haul. I like that. And the example used of Jesus resting, even right in the middle of his monumental ministry, that's so powerful.
It really is.
The source asks, did you ever notice that Jesus rested before the storm? It highlights that even with immense pressure, huge demands, rest was still a priority.
It underscores that rest isn't a sign of weakness or laziness, but a vital component of effectiveness, of resilience, of sustainability.
Yeah.
Even for someone with, a divine mission.
Yeah, you'd think if anyone could skip it.
Right. But no. So the source concludes that if we want to be effective, you want to be used, you want to live out your calling, then don't skip the rest, period.
Right. Finally, it brings in this broader perspective. It contrasts the world's obsession with constant productivity, worth being tied to output.
A hamster wheel.
Yeah. Contrast that with a different understanding, a kingdom perspective, where rest is part of the plan. In the kingdom, stillness is power. In the kingdom, rest is trust and action. It's a completely different value system.
It offers a fundamental shift in what we prioritize. Instead of just relentless output, it values well-being, trust, and that deeper connection to something larger than ourselves. It encourages us to stop betraying yourself to stay relevant.
Ooh, stop abandoning your body for the sake of a brand. Stop exhausting your mind in the name of success. Those are strong warnings.
They are. And the reminder that you are not a robot, you are not a machine, you are a child of God. That's such a powerful affirmation of our true identity beyond what we produce.
It warns against that toxic sacrifice, doesn't it? And burnout disguised as commitment, urging us instead to rest like you believe he's in control. Rest like you know that you're covered. Rest like you're already enough. It's an invitation to just release that constant striving.
Let go. And ultimately, the source paints this picture of the rested individual as the one who can truly make a difference in the world. It says the version of you that the world needs, they're not frantic. They're not drained. They're not operating out of fear.
Okay, so what are they then?
They're rested. They're rooted. They're radiant.
Rested, rooted, radiant. I like that. So the core message from this deep dive seems crystal clear. Rest isn't some optional extra, is it? It's foundational.
Absolutely. Foundational for our overall well-being, our sense of purpose, and our capacity to have a real lasting impact. It's not about being lazy. It's actually about being strategic for life.
Embracing rest, then, can lead to greater resilience, clearer thinking, maybe a more sustainable and, dare I say, fulfilling way of living?
Exactly. It's not just about taking a break. It's about investing in ourselves, investing in our future, investing in everything that truly matters to us.
Right. Well, with that in mind, we'll leave you with that simple but pretty profound final thought from our source material.
Yeah.
Trust God and go get some sleep.
Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Have a great day.